you know what your chart pattern is in your natal chart? Why is it important to know what pattern your natal chart makes? What does your chart pattern actually say about you? Well, I am going to reveal the secrets and the technique and the tips on how to figure it all out today. My name is Meredith, and I am your evolutionary astrologer, and I love that you're learning real astrology with me. We go way past sun sign astrology here, and you get the goods are right here. So thanks for being with me. Today, I'm going to teach you about patterns in the natal chart, and I hope you guys all have your gorgeous natal chart with you. If you don't have one, you can go to my shop and get your gorgeous natal chart. I love working with my charts because they are so easy to read and they're gorgeous. Yours truly designed them. Chart patterns was discovered, pioneered, invented through a brilliant astrologer, Mark Edmund Jones. He's incredible. He's a genius. And he wrote a book called Guide to Horoscope Interpretation. And he started to analyze the way planets are strewn around the wheel of the horoscope. And he started to discover that that actually means something. We're going to go deeper into it, but I want to tell you a few things right now. But listen to this video all the way through because there will be golden nuggets throughout. Also, if you're not a member to my channel yet, you should be one because I'm going to go deeper into chart patterns and the more obscure chart patterns in my behind the scenes videos for members only. So if you want to learn a little bit more, come be a member. It's only $2.99 a month. It puts 6 cents a day into my pocket and it helps me do this work. So thank you to everybody who supports my work. Collectively, it makes an impact and it allows me to take time away from my busy reading schedule, giving individual readings all day long. It allows me to pull away from that and do more work like this so you can truly learn astrology. So there are 2 different kinds of patterns that you can learn about in astrology. And when you're looking at your astrology chart, one is planetary patterns, and then there are aspect patterns. So aspect patterns are the communication between planets. Planetary patterns look at the entirety of the chart, and we look and see exactly what aspects are being made in the wholeness of the chart. It's really fascinating. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the chart in its entirety. And there are various patterns, and there are way more patterns than I'm going to talk about in this video. I might have to do part 2 and part 3. So if I didn't get to your pattern, look for part 2 and part 3. I'll be doing the more obscure patterns, yods and kites and the Star of David in my members only videos. Now, in this exercise, you're going to take your gorgeous natal chart and you're going to eliminate everything but the 10 planets. So the 2 luminaries and then the 8 planets. Okay. I want you to take out the nodes. We're not going to use the vertex, the part of fortune, black moon Lilith, the asteroids, whatever else you have in there, the MC, the IC. We don't use those points to do this exercise. You are only going to use the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So that's it. So either highlight those or make a copy of your chart and highlight those or cross out the points that we won't be using. That's really important. Don't add your part of fortune in so you can get a Star of David, okay? Because it doesn't count. Now, I want you to pull out your chart and work with me alongside this video. The next thing I need to tell you is that each chart pattern is made up of 2 things, the empty spaces inside the chart and the occupied spaces. Let me tell you something very honest here. This is where we're getting real, okay? There are a few people out there that actually have no planetary pattern. They also might have an almost pattern or a little bit of this pattern and a little bit of that pattern, but not all people's souls and personalities fit into a box. And that's okay. Now, most people do have a planetary pattern, but there are some that just absolutely don't. And if you're one of those people, then what you're going to do is you're going to focus on aspects between planets, okay? Now, there are 3 very important things to think about as I'm talking to you in this video about chart patterns. The first thing is the occupied area. So those are the houses where you actually have a planet or planets. That's called the occupied area. This means that this house, these planets are brought into high focus. They are magnified, they are intense, and they are pushing to the front of the line to be noticed and to be worked with. They are making loud statements. If you have have a stellium inside your chart, that means 3 or more personal planets all squished together within 10 degrees apart. That's really, really high focus. That is VIP. That is a place in your chart that is literally magnified. And that is kind of the heartbeat in your chart. And that's really important to know. If you have one of those, it's critical. And if you have one of those, but you don't feel like you have a planetary pattern, well, then you got enough to focus on. The next thing I want you to focus on are the empty houses. Let's just call these the wide open spaces, okay? This is like free range land. This is what I'm going to tell you that a lot of astrologers don't seem to mention. There are no empty houses. That's the big secret. There are no empty houses. Repeat after me. There are no empty houses. There are no empty houses. There are no empty houses. No, no, no. There are no empty houses. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you. Please do not write me a personal email telling me about your empty house. There are none. I guess the video I'm going to send you to is my video on house cusps, the truth about house cusps. I put a lot of truthful information in that video. I bust a lot of myths. And when you watch that video, you will understand why there are no empty houses. Each house has a ruler, and that ruler is probably in a different house because that house that you're looking at is an open space. And it is from that house that is operating that house on remote control. It's coming in remotely from a different part of your chart, but it is not empty. It's on Bluetooth wireless. So we're going to call those open spaces. You can call them empty houses if you want, but they're not really empty because they're bossed, they're ruled, and they're controlled by the planetary ruler that's just living in a different house. So if you have a lot of open spaces in your chart, that is not a bad thing. That is not a deficit. That's not a detriment. That is not anything bad or wrong or even challenging. It just means the other houses that planets are in are taking precedence. They're pushing to the front and they want to be played with. Yeah. Now think about this. Those open spaced houses are really important to know because when a planet out there in the world today transits that empty space, that open territory, that free range territory, it fills that space up with that transiting planet's energy. Whoa! And it makes a huge impact, especially if that transiting planet is one of the outer planets. And so that is Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. That's a really big deal. If you have one of those planets transiting one of your empty houses. The last thing I want to talk about that is so important for you to understand is the lead planet inside your pattern. It's sometimes kind of hard to figure out the lead planet. And I will tell you, I can even be tricked around which one is the lead planet because sometimes you might have more than one lead planet. I have 2 lead planets and they sort of fight for dominance. The leading planet is the first planet in the pattern to rise above the ascendant, even if it happened 11 hours before you were born, going in a clockwise motion. So starting with the 12th house and then the 11th, the 10th, right? Going all the way to the 7th. So going up through the top half of the chart. The lead planet shows you your first impulse. It shows you the way that you start projects, the way your energy revs up and starts and initiates. When you make friends with your lead planet, you start to understand how you move through your tasks and your experiences in life and why you start projects and initiate the way in which you do. The lead planet is your starting point. It's literally the one driving the train. And if you have no lead planet, there is no one consistent way in which you start your engines, in which you start your projects. There's no consistent way in which you act upon. So we're going to go deeper into this. The bundle and the bull patterns usually have the easiest to see lead planet. The seesaw usually has 2 lead planets, one on each side. The bucket can also have 2 leading planets, one leading the bucket, and then the other is the handle. It's a little bit tricky to figure out. And if you can't figure it out, I recommend that you do a little bit of research on the internet on how to figure it out. But I'm going to show you some examples in some charts that I thought were really, really good to show you the lead planet. So my first chart is going to be J.K. Rowling. Now, she's got 2 lead planets. She's got a lead planet in the actual bowl of her bucket chart and then the handle. So Saturn is the lead planet here because it is going to go around to the ascendant, and it is actually leading all of the planets behind it. It's leading the planets Jupiter through Neptune. In the bowl of her bucket chart is Jupiter, and Jupiter is leading all of the other planets in the bowl portion of her bucket chart. This is a classic bucket chart, and a bucket chart has a little handle, that's Saturn, and then it has a bowl. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to show you how you can find the lead planet. So the lead planet is the planet that rose over the ascendant first. In this case, it's Saturn. And that's the handle. And when you have a bucket pattern, you're going to look at the lead planet in the bowl portion of the bucket pattern, which would then be Jupiter. The lead planet is the first planet to have risen over the ascendant, even if it happened before you were born. Okay, so now let's go into our first simple pattern. The bundle is like a bunch. Think of if you were to hold a bouquet of flowers and it was all bunched together really tightly. And some people call this a wedge. I call it a bundle, and it's where the energy is the most concentrated. All of the planets are concentrated within 4 different signs. And I should say 4 different houses. It's basically contained within 120 degrees, which is a trine. Some bundles might span 130 degrees. That's okay. It's still a bundle. They can't go over 130 degrees. The planets might not be in a stellium, and they can span 5 houses. That's the limit of the bundle. Then after that, we're getting into a different pattern. The leading planet is the planet that has crossed the ascendant first, going clockwise. So it's pretty easy to figure out what your lead planet is when you have a bundle pattern. The leading planet is really important in a bundle. It has its really high focus, and it is leading. It's how you start your projects. It's how you initiate your energy. It's how you actually use your energy. Now, your leading planet can be in any house in the whole chart. It doesn't have to be above the horizon. It just has to have crossed the ascendant first. So I'm going to show you Mussolini's chart. You can see that Neptune is his lead planet. So he was a bit delusional. Now, bundle people have a consistency about them. They have a routine about them. They like routines, and they pretty much do every single thing with the same type of energy, right? There's a pragmatic predictability about them. They're very consistent. They're very reliable, and they do things in a certain order. And that lead planet will show you how they actually do things. With bundle people, there is a concentration of energy, there is high focus, and there is a high focus on themselves as well. Like they really focus on what their needs are and what they need to do in their life. I also want to tell you that whatever house the lead planet is sitting in is a very critical house to the native, to the person whose chart it is we're reading. So the trailing planet is the planet that is last to rise over the ascendant, and it is the farthest away from the leading planet. And in a bundle, the trailing planet will sort of show you how the person's life is evaluated, seen in the eyes of others, or judged even. So the trailing planet kind of sweeps up after the lead planet and all the other planets were left behind. So if you have Venus as a trailing planet, you really care about having a harmonious, happy outcome. And you might have to patch up the work of the other planets that went before, especially if your lead planet is Uranus. That's like a wrecking ball coming through. And then Venus gets kind and sweet and picks up all the pieces, right? Now, 2 more things about the bundle person is the bundle person really sees life through their own lens. They have most of their chart in wide open spaces. Their life is about 4, maybe 5, but usually it's 4 different primary themes going on. And if you don't know what the houses mean, please go watch my video, Sun Through the Houses, and really watch my videos on this channel to understand what the different houses mean. Because in a bundle person's chart, there are planets only in 4 houses. So those 4 houses, those 4 arenas of life, those 4 subject matters, if you will, take precedence over all other things until they get transiting planet, going through those wide open spaces. And so they're highly concentrated in those areas in life, and they see life through their own perspective and their own lens. They're very self-contained as well, and they're not scattered about. They're not just throwing their energy everywhere. It's high concentration in certain specific areas of life. And that's how they use their energy. That's how you will recognize them. If your dad is a bundle chart pattern, it doesn't even matter if he's an Aries. If he likes to watch, football or soccer from his armchair, let's say he's got, his bundle in the 5th house and he likes to bet on sports. Well, you can leave for 10 years and come back home and find your dad sitting in the armchair watching his sports, making his bets, right? It's like they do what they do, and they see life through their own lens. I want to tell you something about all the different chart patterns. It might not be exact, okay? So what if you have, a planet at 131 degrees? Is it not a bundle? Well, yeah, it's still a bundle, but you're moving into bold territory. However, I want to show you a really quick example, and that is Paul McCartney's chart. He is a bundle, but he's not a super tight bundle. You can see in his chart that his concentration really does focus. And so it's a tiny bit too wide to be a bundle, but I would still call it a bundle. Now you can see in this chart, his lead planet is Venus in Taurus and his trailing planet is Neptune. Even though Neptune is going to rise above the ascendant after he's born, we know that Venus rose first. So Venus is the lead planet and Neptune is the trailing planet, even though it's closest to the ascendant. And Neptune is his chart ruler. So Neptune is no small thing. And if you guys didn't see my chart ruler video, oh my gosh, please go watch my video called What is Your Chart Ruler? Because that's very important. So his trailing planet is also his chart ruler along with Mercury. Now his bundle is 128 degrees. So it's a wide bundle. It's like if you take a bouquet of flowers and you hold them like this rather than like this. Okay. I really love his chart and I think he really is his chart. Okay. Let's talk about the locomotive. The locomotive are planets spread out pretty evenly through 8 signs. And the first planet and the last planet usually form a trine. A trine is having 2 signs in the same element. So 2 fire signs, 2 earth signs, 2 air signs, or 2 water signs. I want to also say that the locomotive pattern can also create something called a grand trine. And that is having all 3 fire signs, earth signs, air signs, or water signs. That's pretty lucky. So when I said spaced evenly across 8 different signs, what I mean is that there's not a space bigger or wider than 60 degrees apart. Now, each sign is 30 degrees. So in a locomotive, you need to have your planets in those 8 different signs without them being further than 60 degrees apart. So that is 2 full signs apart. They can't have more than 60 degrees or 2 full signs apart. And if you feel like this is overwhelming, well, what I want you to do is still listen to this whole video. And then I want you to go watch How to Read My Natal Chart, Mars Through the Houses, Sun Through the Houses, all 12 houses. And I want you to start learning because pretty soon after you Netflix binge watch me, you'll be ready for this more advanced material. But isn't it kind of fun to learn new things? Okay, the leading planet in the locomotive is like the engine to the train. Locomotives are like on a mission and they are unstoppable. And your lead planet is your inspiration, your motivation, and your empowerment. It makes you go, go, and go. It is super impactful and very, very important. It might not be your chart ruler, but it is the way you literally initiate all the other planets. It's how you get your whole rest of your chart. Woohoo, woo, woo. Yeah, it's how you get all the rest to get on board. It has a lot of excitement, drive, power, and enthusiasm in it. if you have 60 degrees or 40 degrees of an empty space right in the middle of your locomotive, I just want you to know those other planets behind that empty space are going to push through it. That wide open space is kind of important, and it is in high focus, but the engine on this train is saying, I think I can, I know I can, I will, and it has a lot of grit and determination. And if you do have, 60 degrees or a lot of degrees, 45 degrees, more than 30 degrees, your locomotive might not have the consistent power that it needs or that it wants to pursue its goals. And it can kind of run out of steam at times. So you might get bored, you might drop the ball, you might lose interest a little bit more quickly. But I'll just tell you, most people with locomotive patterns are unstoppable. They just push through, and they have a really big drive about them. And if you do have a pretty consistent locomotive, you have an ability to never quit. You stay pretty driven and pretty focused. And there is a consistency, there is a pattern inside of you on how you start projects, how they start and how they end. And you'll see a repetitive theme. And it's really important to also know what your trailing planet is, because that's how you'll finish projects up too. And then I want you to really study those planets. Really, really study those planets, because those planets are your friends. The trailing planet is literally the caboose, and it doesn't matter, how fast your engine goes. It matters if the whole train arrives, in one piece, that caboose stays intact. So we don't want to go so fast that we derail our train, especially if you have that wide open space right in the middle of your whole train. You just have to be careful, because that wide open space kind of acts like a knuckle or a joint, or, on one of those big buses that have those like accordion middles to it, right? And it allows it to turn, and it kind of spins. I never like sitting in those seats because you're always bending and turning. There's flexibility there. That's kind of like what that wide open space is like. It allows for flexibility and turn and change, but you don't want to lose your caboose, right? This type of energy is all systems go, and it has enormous energy, and we just don't want you to run off the track. So I want to hear if you have one of these patterns, and what is your lead planet and what is your trailing planet. And then it's important also to look at the house in which your lead planet is sitting in. Let's look at a quick example. So a really great way to think about the locomotive is if you have your planets scattered through 8, maybe 9 houses at the most, and you have about 4 signs that are empty. So 2/3 of the chart is taken up by occupied houses, and you can have a little gap in there, like we discussed. But 8 of the houses, are sort of connected without 60 degrees, 2 signs being consecutively empty. And then 4 houses, approximately 3.5 to 4 houses, have no planets. They're wide open spaces. Okay, so this is a great chart to look at. We can see that the lead planet is the moon, and the last planet to cross the ascendant will be Saturn, and that will be the trailing planet. So that one's very, very interesting. Leading with love, following up with responsibility. So let's talk about the bull. The bull is usually somebody who is self-contained. This is a relatively frequent pattern that I see in my readings. And there's a concentration of the planets in half of the chart. It can be any half. It doesn't have to be, the eastern or the western or the northern or the southern. The planets create literally, this is visually a very easy pattern to recognize, because it's like a nice bull. So I want you to think about planets pretty evenly scattered. You could have one empty house in your bowl and it still is okay, but your planets are scattered in 6 consecutive houses. And these people really get things done. They're highly motivated people. They're concentrated kind of in these 6 arenas in life. So if you do have a bull, I want you to look at the meaning of the houses that your planets are in. And those are the houses that are of high importance for you. And again, if you don't know what the houses mean, please go watch my video called The Sun Through the Houses, and you can learn about the meaning of each house. All of your planets take up the space 120 degrees to 180 degrees, not less than 120, That would be a bundle. This bowl spreads from 120 degrees to 180 degrees. And this is a really highly motivated people who don't like to count on other people. And they have no oppositions in their chart. I will say that a lot of bowl people kind of work from a premise of what's missing in their life because they have a whole half of the chart with just wide open spaces and they have no planets in those houses. And so sometimes these people overcome the odds or overcome the loneliness, overcome the empty spaces, if you will. So I want you to think about these different people that have bowl charts because they kind of operate through a function around being fearful around what they don't have. What they don't have motivates them to go out there and get it. They also are a little bit, like I said, self-contained, where they don't like to depend on other people and they don't like not being in control. These people really have a lot of self-control, or at least they want to. Now, if you guys are liking this content, I could do a video on each one of these patterns because it really matters where the bowl is in your chart. Like if you have your whole bowl, underneath the horizon or above the horizon, it matters and it means totally different things. Each one of these patterns has so many significant things, and I could probably talk about each one of these patterns for an hour a piece and it still would not cover everything. And I do kind of want to talk about, like, if you do look at the chart and you see that the bowl could actually hold something in it, that is a person who has a lot of security. And if you have a bowl that's upside down, it's like everything falls out of the bowl. Are you going to put popcorn in a bowl that looks like this? Yeah. No, right? So, however, I do want to say bowl people, wow, it's like painful for them to think of themselves as the little dog at the dog park. Yeah, so they have a largeness about them because they are so acutely aware of what is missing in their game, what is missing in the world, what is missing inside themselves, what is missing in their family, what is missing in their life. Listen to these people that are bowl people. Amelia Earhart, Billie Jean King, Ella Fitzgerald. Oh my God, did you guys see her movie? I think it was called Respect. Wow, her life story is amazing. Please go watch that. Vincent van Gogh, Abraham Lincoln, and dun, 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 Donald Trump. So we can see all of these people grew their life and built their life out of fearing what they might not have. So it's very interesting. Lots of drama with the bowl people. They mean business. They do not like being dependent on other people at all. So are you a bowl person? Also, it's pretty easy to see what your lead planet is and what your trailing planet is. Okay, let's talk about the bucket pattern. The bucket pattern is, it's a bowl. So you have to look for that bowl between 120 and no more than 180. And then it has one planet. It can sometimes have two planets. Usually it's one, sometimes it's two in very close conjunction. So they have to be, if it's two planets, it has to be within 10 degrees that are separated from the rest, opposing the bowl. And that singleton planet, sometimes the bucket can have, like I said, a handle that is a conjunction of two tightly woven planets together. Most charts that I've seen have a singleton handle on the bucket. So it actually looks like a basket. It looks literally like a basket. So there's one planet up here, and then there is the bowl, 120 to 180 degrees apart. Now, the handle on the bucket is usually flat out called the lead planet. If you have two planets in tight conjunction as the handle, find the one, cross the ascendant first. And that is the lead in the handle. And then there is oftentimes a lead planet in the bowl part of the bucket. Are you guys with me? That singleton planet, that planet that is the handle, is sort of the counterweight to this whole entire bowl. And everything, all the energy kind of goes out of that handle. The handle's energy is just ginormous, eclipses the whole bowl part of the chart. And it is the taskmaster, and it is the driver, it is the energizer, it is how things are done because it's uncomfortable and it's out of discomfort, a screeching pain in the ass, pain in the butt, and just pain that handle makes things happen. I happen to have this planetary chart pattern. I'll tell you something very, very interesting about this. My handle is Saturn, and it's why I show up consistently in my life. It's why I am highly disciplined. And it's why I actually make things come to fruition when so much of my chart is actually mutable, scattered, and all over the place. Well, when Saturn is the handle to your bucket, there's something inside of you that is just such a hard taskmaster and driver that you get a backbone and you become quite Saturnian. And I never understood why I could have so much mutability in my chart and why I could be a loyal, faithful, committed person to my promises, my obligations. I have huge, high loyalty, and it's because I have Saturn as the handle in my bucket. And I don't like to talk too much about my chart openly, and I don't like to make it be all about me. And I also don't like to assume that because it's that way with me, with Saturn as my handle, that it's going to be that way for you with Saturn as your handle. My Saturn handle happens to be in a fixed house as well. So it creates more grounded energy. And I'm not as flighty or flaky or casual as a lot of mutable signs are because of that. So this is an example of how your chart pattern has you show up, has you use all your energy. And Saturn is not my chart ruler at all. That handle is very weighty. It is very important. It really will shape how you use your energy and how you're driven. Now, how do you know where your handle is? Listen, your handle is on the opposite side of the chart. So there's a huge emphasis in 6 houses, right? And sometimes it can even be bigger than that. But because especially if you don't use equal sign houses or whole sign houses. If you use Coke or Placidus or Porphyry, I use Placidus, but if you use one of those, you can have tiny houses and you can have big houses. So you need to count the degrees rather than the houses, because a bowl can actually span 8 houses if it fits between 120 and 180 degrees. Now, I do want to say, if your bowl goes to 190 degrees, okay, we give it to you. We're not exact. Please don't be this exacting with these chart patterns. Yes, I want you to be exacting with your rising sign. Yes, I want you to be exact to the minute on your birth time. Yes, it's very important. And yes, when we're working with 29 degrees, by progression, and we're like 29:59, yes, that is the sign that you are. You're not the next sign. Don't round up. But with this, you guys, this is not exact. This is like looking at art. Okay. Like, what shape do you see? Yeah. So if it goes up to 190 degrees, okay, I'll give it to you. But really, it needs to be within 180 degrees. We'll give you the 10 extra degrees if you need it. I also want to say that your handle is just on the other side. Now, it can be close to the edge of your bowl. It just can't be conjunct. So your handle could be, if it's more than 10 degrees away from the edges of your bowl, it's a handle. So your handle could be askance. It might not be right here. Your handle might be over here, right? Then we have a teapot. Yeah, then we have a teapot. And so, but that handle is still really important. I have to tell you guys that my inbox is blowing up. I wish I could answer every single question. If you want me to answer your questions, please become a member, because I prioritize my superstar super supporters and my super supporters. And I try my very best to answer your questions. If you have a little badge next to your name, if you're a unicorn or a crown, oh my gosh, you've been with me for so long and I love you, and I prioritize my members. So if you have a question, just leave it in the comment and I will try to get back to you. And if you are a member of my channel, it might take me a little bit of time, but ring the bell. So when I answer your question, you actually get notified. And I have found that I have gone into great detail answering somebody's question and they've never even looked at it ever again. They never even came back and looked at it. So come back, because I really do try, but please don't send me an email. Oh my God, my emails are like insane. I'm getting thousands of emails a day. I can't answer all those questions. It's so overwhelming and I'm breaking down. Just leave a comment on the video and I promise you I will try my best. And if you are a member, it is a priority for me to answer your questions. I try my hardest. Know that I come with lots of love and good intentions, and I'm just one person doing 2 full-time jobs plus YouTube. I want to tell you just a little bit more about about the bucket. Bucket people actually have more energy than bowl people because they have a release valve. However, that handle planet can actually do you in too if you don't work with the energy. Now, let me just tell you, the last planet I ever wanted to frickin' work with was Saturn. I was just like, please don't make me do it. I have worked with Saturn. I've made Saturn my friend, and Saturn is helping me find the rewards in that. That handle allows you to get to the other side of the chart, and it's internal work. So you don't have to wait for a transit to trigger you in some opposition. But it's hard. It's not simple. There is a deep, intense energy with bucket people. I mean, really, really deep. It's kind of scorpionic in a way because bucket people can self-sabotage if they really don't integrate the handle part of their chart into their life. And it's painful to do. When you do it, there's a relentlessness. There is a superhuman desire to conquer their fears at all costs. A great example is the great James Cameron, and he has made some of the most incredible movies. We could talk about the Titanic. We could talk about Avatar #1 and #2. We could talk about the Terminator, but there's another movie that I want to talk about, and that is his movie about plant-based eating called The Game Changers, I think. Yeah, I think he produced it, and it won awards at the Sundance Film Festival. It was in 2018, and it was a game changer. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. It's a documentary. And anyways, he has the planetary pattern of the bucket. And what's interesting about him, guess what his handle is? It's the moon. Mars is his leading planet in the bull part. It's pretty powerful and it's pretty amazing because there's this concentrated energy in the bull. Handle is the apex in which all that energy is released. You really do have to look at the signs, the houses, and the aspects to the handle planet. There is a lot of power with bucket people. Okay, I'm clearly going to have to do a part 2 and maybe even a part 3, but I am going to reserve some of the more obscure chart patterns for my members. And I do hope so much you'll become a member. So we are going to also, in next week's video, we'll look at the splash, we'll look at the splay. We need to touch on the fan. The fan is a bundle with a handle. So it's not a bowl with a handle, it's a bundle with a handle. We absolutely have got to talk about the seesaw. That's absolutely critical. And then I also want to talk to you about grand squares and grand trines. And so maybe that has to be its own video. And so if you want me to go into this deeper and you want more information, I'll do it for you guys. Just leave me a comment below and let me know. I know somebody asked me about the mystic rectangle and the kite and the yod and all that. So we will get to that. And if you're a member, you'll have access to everything. And by the way, I hope you guys are coming to learn with me in person. That's going to be in May. It's my retreat right here on the Seattle waterfront. It is going to be so thrilling. Come learn astrology with me. It will be mind-blowing. You can check out all the details in the notes below or just go to soulnavigation.com and click on Meredith's Astrology Workshop and Retreat. It's for 3 days. It's intensive and you just won't be the same after you do astrology for 3 days straight with me. It's going to be all day. We're going to have fun at night. Check out all the details. And I just want you to know from my house here in Seattle, I love teaching you to wherever you're at in the world. Thank you for being here. I hope you are loving learning astrology. It is my ultimate passion and I love getting to share it with you. Take care.